In today's episode, you could say we are bringing into action what's good, everybody? I'm Randy. Of course, this is the 5-5 Garage, and today I will be showing you all how I swapped my Mazda Miata over to a set of adjustable coilovers from Megan Racing. As you all know, if you follow the channel, and you should be following the channel, that a couple months back, I purchased a 1996 Mazda Miata. And I got it for a really good price, but there was a couple things on the car that needed to be fixed. Now, in previous videos, I have shown you guys how I fixed my shifter. I went ahead and replaced the fluids in the transmission and in the rear diff, and today we will be tackling the suspension. Now, for those of you who may not know a lot about Mazda Miata suspensions, one very key component of that setup is the bump stops. But unfortunately, over time, the bump stops do get old, they get brittle, and in the case of my car, they disintegrate. So it makes the ride very harsh. The car hits bumps, and it's just not a very good feeling. It's almost like jackhammerish sometimes. So today, I finally decided to take out the stock suspension, which I've checked and it verified it is the original suspension. So that's like over 20 years old by now. And I'm going to replace it with a set of adjustable coilovers that I got from Megan Racing. Now, Megan Racing makes, am I pronouncing that right? I'll have to figure that out later, but Megan Racing sells different sets of coilovers, and the ones that I got are the EZ Streets, and as you can see, it's a fully adjustable coilover. You can adjust the spring rate as well as adjust the ride height, and these are adjustable, and you have 15 levels of dampening settings. Now, this is the coilover for the rear, and I will show you guys the coilover from the front. Ta-da! Which has the bracket so you can attach your brake line to keep that out of the way. One of the reasons why I decided to go with this set of coilovers over some other examples that are on the market, some of the other coilovers like the Tines, for example, the spring rates are too low, and I want to lower this car a little bit. Probably won't do it now, but later on when I upgrade the wheels and tires. And I want to be able to be sure that when I lower the car a little bit, the spring rates can keep up. So that's the reason why I went with these, as well as I got a killer deal from Pro Import Tuners. I will leave the links down in the description, but the price on these was just too good to pass up. I was considering going with a Bilstein setup and getting some Fat Cat Motorsports bump stops, but by the time I did all the figuring and I ended up these were within range, as well as once I got the really good deal for Pro Import, I just decided to go with these. So I will let you guys know how these work out over the coming months and whether or not you should be interested in getting a set of your own. But for me, I'm going to get started with this install. So the first thing I need to do is to jack the car up and get it up on a set of jack stands. So when it comes to the installation of these, the fronts are usually harder, and that is the reason why I'm going to start there first. The rears go a little bit faster, and there's multiple ways of doing the fronts. First thing I'm probably going to do is disconnect the sway bar end links to kind of relieve some of the tension on the front, and then I'm going to see if I can just push down on the front suspension in order to be able to get the front strut out. If I can't, then I will have to use what's called the long bolt method, and I will describe that a little bit later if I have to do that. So let's get started. All right, so now that we have the car jacked up and the wheels are off and it's on jack stands, first thing we're going to want to start doing in our disassembly process is these two 14mm bolts. Now this is where the front suspension bolts to, And underneath this cap, there is a 17 millimeter. If you were going to rebuild your suspension instead of swap it out completely, you would go ahead and just loosen this nut. But I'm not going to cover that today because I'm just going to take the whole assembly out and replace it with something else. So like I said, 14 millimeter bolts. You might want to use some PB blaster on them just in case, like in my case, they haven't been removed since the car was new. And you're going to want to just go ahead and just remove these bolts completely. Do this side and then do the other side. Here we are under the car, and the next bolt you're going to want to remove is that one right there. And it's a 17 millimeter bolt and a 17 millimeter nut. As well, you might want to use some PB blaster to make it easier to get that to come loose. Sometimes, you gotta use an impact. Alright, now that you have that 17 millimeter right there removed, the next thing we're going to do is loosen these two 14 millimeter bolts. These are the sway bar end link, and as you can see, I've already PB blasted these, but I'm going to remove these in order to uncouple the front suspension from the sway bar, and that should give me the room I need so I can push down on this to be able to get this old strut out. Once you've gotten the bolts out of the top, that 17 millimeter bolt out of the bottom, and the two 14 millimeter bolts on the sway bar end link, you can then go ahead and kind of push down. As you can see, pushing down on this, it's already giving me quite a bit of room that I can reach in here and try to wiggle this out.
Two hours later.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the long bolt method, and that's what I was talking about earlier. And that is where, in order to get this out, it's a 21 millimeter bolt here and a 21 millimeter nut, and you're going to have to summon some strength of the bear to get this loose. Now, I'm using a 1/2 inch ratchet down here, and I got a big 12-inch crescent wrench down here. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to break this loose. I recommend getting a breaker bar because this has about 100 foot-pounds of torque on it from the factory, and it's very hard to get loose, as you can hear me breathing very hard. You're going to loosen this up, take the nut off, and then this long bolt, you're going to take a rubber mallet and knock that bolt loose, and it'll actually, you have area for it to slide out going to the front of the car. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow this upper control arm to come away loose. So when you then push down, this gets completely out of the way, and you will be able to take this out. Another thing that just happened is you might have to back out these sway bar mount bolts because it's hitting the head of this bolt as you try to move it through. I think those are a 13. Okay, that's out of the way. Then, boom! And just like that, there is the old strut. Man, thing's a little heavy too, but there you go. And as you can see, the long bolt method. So much easier I should have just did that and I'd have been done like an hour ago. All right, just a comparison shot for you guys, just so you can see the difference in size. Of course, this one is the stock setup, and that one, of course, at the top is the new coilover. As you can see, it's got the adjustment knob at the top. This should go in a lot easier than it was to take the old one out. Okay, so here is my new McGann Racing coilover. And before we install, first thing you want to do, make sure is that these lock rings are tight and bound together. So take your nifty spanner wrenches and make sure that they are, and as you see, they're tight. So these are not only adjustable for spring rate, but ride height. So what you want to do when you change the ride height is you loosen this one, and then since you have these bound together, you can take this and adjust it up or down to change your ride height without having to take this back out of the car. To install this, it's just the reverse process of taking everything out. But a little different thing that I'm going to do is everything that I have taken apart is going to be greased when I put it back together, just in case that I have to do this again sometime. It'll be much easier getting everything apart. So the coilovers come with new hardware for the top, and we will get started putting this all back together. Alright, so coilover's in. The lower bolt is already tightened down. I left the top ones loose. I've also left this upper control arm bolt loose, and that's because we need to torque those down with the suspension under a bit of load. And we're going to pick this back up after I do the other side. So I'll see you guys, well, to you in a minute.
2 hours later.
Okay, so we're back. I've already went and finished the passenger side, so now I'm back on the driver's side. And just to give you guys a little hint, save hooking back up your sway bar end links until you've done both sides, because it is a major pain to try and connect one end link while the other side is connected and has load on it. Trust me on that one. So now I need to torque that upper control arm bolt, and what you need to do is you got to do it with the suspension under load. I've seen people do this and not do it this way, and then when they put their wheels back on and lower their car back to the ground, their car sits really high, and that's because they tightened and torqued it down when the suspension is unloaded. So in order to do this, I'm going to use my floor jack. I'm going to put it under the lower control arm and raise it up, and watch as it starts to put load on the front suspension. And once I see it get to the point where the car starts lifting off of the jack stands, I'm going to stop right there and then go ahead and torque the bolts down. I went ahead and finished the other side. Go ahead and make sure that your upper coilover bolts are tight, the lower coilover bolt is tight, as well as the upper control arm bolt. And once everything is torqued down and you double check, go ahead and you can put your wheel back on. All right, the fronts are on, the wheels are on, everything's torqued down. The wheel gap has definitely come down from where it was. The rears are still on stock, and that's where we're going to start next. All right, now here we are on the rear, and unlike the fronts where you have multiple ways of getting it out, the rear, pretty much there's only one way to remove the rear coilover in the rear, and that is to disconnect this upper control arm bolt here, and this will allow this whole assembly to fall forward, kind of like removing the long bolt in the front suspension to get this out. And there are two bolts in the trunk, and there's the one bolt here that you need to remove as well. Just like the front, we're going to disconnect the rear sway bar linkage to make this easier, so this can drop fully all the way down, and this will make this much faster than the front. The reason why I started with the front, because I knew they were going to be more difficult. The rear should go much faster. Before I disconnect this bolt, I'm going to put a jack underneath here to kind of support this. So when this gets disconnected, this is going to want to fall over and drop, and that way I have something supporting it. Okay, so here we are in the trunk. Those are the two 14mm bolts that you're going to have to remove in order to drop the rear shock. And this is on the driver's side behind the fuel hoses, as you can see. And then over here, this is the passenger side. And you're going to want to wait until you get that upper control arm bolt removed before you break those loose. The old one is out. And here's another little video comparing the stock rear coilover to the new coilover. And you can see the new one's going to be a bit of a drop, but should ride much better. Got our new coilover, and the installation is just a reversal of disassembly. Going to take the time to make sure that I give a little grease to some of these components going back together. All right, this side's done, and now I got to go do the other side, and I'll see you guys in like a minute. All right, finally got done with the other side, and I went ahead, put the wheels back on, took it off the jack stands, and then torqued all of my lug nuts. And man, this thing is low. It's living the low life now. I can't wait till I can get my set of new wheels and tires, really set this thing off. But man, I am liking the stance so far. All right, before you take your car out, double check, make sure everything is torqued to spec. All your lug nuts are torqued. All of the bolts that we removed today are torqued back to spec. All of your coilover bolts are torqued down. Just make sure and double check everything before you take your car out for a drive. Now, I'm going to let the car sit maybe about 2 or 3 days. I'm going to drive around a bit, give the suspension a chance to settle, and see if I need to make any height adjustments. Right now it's about where I want it to be height-wise. Like I said, I do have some new wheels and tires that are coming, so I know I'm probably going to have to make some changes there. I might get a little rub. I might have to roll my fenders. I'm definitely going to need alignment. So, you know, if you're interested and you want to know how this goes, stay tuned. I'll keep you guys informed. Hopefully you liked the video, and if you did, go ahead and leave me a big thumbs up. And I hope you all are really appreciating the videos that I'm putting down on this channel. I got Miata stuff, I got some Monster Speed 3 stuff, I got some Trailblazer stuff. I think I'm even going to get back into doing some Honda CBR stuff as well. So make sure you click that subscribe button and don't forget to click the little bell. You're definitely not going to want to miss these new videos. So it is now evening. I started this morning. Probably could have got done in a little less time. It's just the filming kind of eats into the time because, you know, I got to stop and change the camera and whatnot and so forth. So I am going to finish this up, clean up my garage, go in, take a shower, and get me something to eat and enjoy my evening. I hope you're enjoying your evening as well, and I will see you all next time.